It's really about identifying what your core beliefs are and what you stand for. From that place, that's where you can speak your truth. That's where you can start to activate your voice. But if you don't know what you believe in, it's hard to take a stand. It's hard to speak your truth. It's hard to ask for what you want if you don't know what you want.
You're listening to the Feed Your Wild podcast, a conscious lifestyle show about all things nourishing for your body, mind, and soul. I'm Vanessa Rodriguez, and join me for candid conversations with changemakers, exploring health and wellness, food as medicine, intuition and spirituality, and nature-based practices that will transform your health and feed all parts of your wild self. Hello, and welcome back to Feed Your Wild. I am your host, Vanessa Rodriguez, functional nutritionist, Akashic soul record reader and channeler, an intuitive nourishment guide. And I have a lovely interview for you today on this moon day and this Pisces full moon we got in September 2021, depending on where you are in the world. Today we have my good friend Ashley Burnett back on the podcast. And before I go into our interview and some of what we chatted about, I thought that I could do a quickie mini moon musing for this full moon in Pisces because it is a lovely one. It's a dreamy one, extra sensitive, extra creative, extra intuitive, and juicy with the watery realms. So, you know, my Cancer ass loves all of this watery, intuitive energy. But I know that it can also be extra for some people, and myself included. You know, I got the pregnancy hormones going on, although I must say that they haven't really been that crazy. You know, I hear stories of extra emotions and heightened emotions happening. I actually never experienced that with my moon time anyway, so perhaps it's for folks who experience more of those ebbs and flows with the emotions during their moon time or in connection to the waters of their sacred womb space. I have experienced a little extra emotion in the first trimester, but really since then it's been fairly what I guess you could say normal for me, but maybe my normal is actually more emotional for other people. I'm pretty sensitive to begin with, so maybe that's what it is. But I digress. This full moon is, as I mentioned, extra watery and dreamy. So at this point, emotions may be running a bit high for you. Now, Pisces is ruled by the element of water. Pisces we know as our dreamy, psychic, beautiful sign. And moon love to be in water signs. Our water signs being Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. And it's under these ebbs and flows, like the waves of the waters of these signs, that the moon can really express its fullest self, its fullest energetic potential. When we think about the moon, we must always see it in the greater context of the cycles that it's a part of and what else is going on in the cosmos. Full moons are typically seen as a time of illumination or the culmination, like the peak of the lunar cycle. And so we can look back at events linked to this particular full moon. And the ones that we want to look back to are first our Virgo new moon, which we experienced this month in September. So looking at what was going on around that time, maybe some seeds that were planted and intentions that you had set for the Virgo new moon. And also going all the way back to mid-March under the Pisces new moon. So you can see the connections there between the Pisces new moon and the Pisces full moon. What was going on for you back in mid-March? Maybe even checking in emotionally how things were for you at that point too. Now, in addition to this being a watery Pisces full moon, we also have Neptune. Neptune is the planet of dreams, intuition, illusions as well. It's pretty active, we could say, under this full moon because of its proximity to the full moon, meaning how close it is in degrees to this full moon. So Neptune is active here as well. And in my experience, what I have really felt when Neptune is active in my chart or in general, it can be a little bit like I enter these realms of the netherworld or the liminal. It could maybe feel a bit foggy, like we can't really quite think as, quote, rationally. It might be harder to have a clear mind when we're thinking about when we have decisions to make or we're thinking about certain situations. So it could be nebulous in that way. So we have this watery full moon, which can sort of amplify our emotions. And then we have an active Neptune that's maybe causing some fogginess or some murky waters, so to speak, which can both bring up certain illusions that aren't quite real, but also enhance your intuition in your dream state. So we can see this time and this moon as maybe an invitation to be with our feels, all the feels, and to let go a bit of the rational mind, because it might just be kind of like trying to grasp for things, but you can't quite get a hold of them. We can just let it go just for the moment and really allow ourselves to slip into a place of being with our feeling state, with our emotions, and really flow with curiosity and with compassion. A lot of times, the answers that we are seeking are not in the thinking mind or the rational mind, but they're in the heart. They're with your intuition. And because so often we've been conditioned to overthink and analyze, that we forget to drop in and really tune in to the body, to the heart, and to all the ways that you intuit information for yourself. So you can really utilize this time to drop into that space. You know, I'm one that I think chronically seeks evidence for things, which I think is kind of paradoxical considering a lot of the work that I do, because, you know, there isn't, quote, evidence, or at least the type of evidence that would be deemed sufficient in some aspects of our worldview relating to my intuitive work and, you know, the Akashic record reading, channelings, and all of that. But the evidence that I receive is when I tune in to my inner GPS, to my heart, and what really rings true. And of course, also seeing that validated when working with others. It's always helpful to have that kind of validation if you feel that you need it. However, seeking the evidence isn't always going to actually give us what it is that we're looking for. So I think this is a time to also drop the seeking of evidence, and instead to really, again, be with ourselves, connect with ourselves in that emotional and energetic way. And our emotions are information, right? They may not really be indicative of the, quote, truth of what is happening, but it is almost a momentary truth for yourself, we must honor our emotions and what we're experiencing. They're very valid and real, and they're always in motion. So energy in motion, that's emotions, right? So the key is to really be with that energy in flow and motion. And we have this Pisces full moon to help assist us in doing so with the flows of these energetic waters. Now, here's this theme again of the water and Neptune also being very much connected to waters and the ocean. So if you are lucky enough to be near a body of water, a natural body of water, whether it be the sea or a beautiful river and lake, spending time near the water can be really lovely right now. Also bringing in some water-based therapies like bathing and being in a bath, showering, and just communing with water in any way that you can, even if it's simply washing your hands and staying hydrated. Now, sometimes this time, might feel a little overwhelming if we're not used to being with our emotions, if we don't have the tools to really allow us to be in a good way with what comes up for us, because a lot of times we can stuff things down, and then when we get the chance and we look at it, it's like blah, like everything comes out. So there might feel like there's a little bit of emotional instability, and I just really encourage you to be with that too. Be with that feeling of overwhelm and bring in the support that you need to really help you through that if you're feeling extra sensitive. And this, again, is a wonderful time to connect maybe with some creative activities and really take advantage of the creativity, the dreaminess, and the intuition that can be enhanced. Now, moving into our interview today, what I really love about this conversation is we're talking about something, i.e. entrepreneurship and having a business, and really looking at the ways that we can do some of these more traditionally, I guess you could say, yang or quote masculine ways of being and doing things like in business and in entrepreneurialism, and then bringing them back into a place of receiving, of the yin, of femininity, of the queen archetype, which we'll be talking about, and pleasure. So this particular episode is definitely speaking to entrepreneurs or those who are maybe dabbling or thinking about starting their own business and what that would mean or look like, but also for anybody who's wanting to build their community or to show up in a way as a leader in their world, whether that's in their family or in their small community or to the wider world around them. Now, Ashley's a women's business and leadership coach. She's also a dancer, retreat facilitator, and nature-based ritualist. And she really specializes in helping change-making entrepreneurs. She helps them with clarifying their vision, heightening their income and impact, and cultivating what she calls queen confidence, and align their businesses with the cycles of nature and sustainable growth long term, which I'm a huge proponent of and am actively always trying to sync my own path with business as a solo entrepreneur in with my greater missions and with the cycles of Mama Earth and nature, and really opting out of more of the linear, capitalistic, young, masculine model that is so pervasive in business in general, but especially with entrepreneurship. We had Ashley on the podcast before. I share the story of how we met and the work we've done together in previous episodes, so I'm not going to talk about that in this one, and I'll make sure to link up those episodes. If you want to hear about those journeys, you can go back and listen to them, so the links will be in the show notes. And Ashley was one of the folks who entered my life when I was in need of clarity and expansion in stepping into my soul path with my business. The past 2 years have really been a roller coaster and continues to be a crucible and even catalyst for so many of us, forcing us to get clear on our beliefs, what it is that we're here to do, how we show up, and reassess our life path and our goals. So if you're feeling like this is you, maybe you're at a crossroads, you are not alone. I personally have worked with so many folks, especially the Akashic Record readings, who are really motivated and moved in this time to take a leap into either starting their own business or building community, some entering the realms of what we can call entrepreneurialism or entrepreneurship for the first time, which can be incredibly scary, and for others, perhaps more refinement of a path that they are already had been called to walk upon long ago. So in this episode, we reflect upon the past couple of years journeying as a collective with COVID and how this time is really requiring us to get creative and for many to be brave and to step onto a new path. We discuss fear, capital F, and specifically the fear of change. And Ashley walks us through a 6-step process to move through fear and resistance around taking inspired action or moving forward. Ashley shares how she balances entrepreneurship with mamahood, working from home, and her approach to the rhythms of entrepreneurship, moving with the cycles and seasons of nature, and honoring the energies, especially rest. We touch on the Uninhibited Queen archetype, what it is, Ashley's personal journey with this energy, and the importance of getting clear on your core beliefs and cultivating your confidence and queen voice. Ashley also shares what she's learned about building community and holding space after 20 years of working in groups, retreats, and circles, and why a pleasure-based business model is the way to go. This episode is full of gems, especially for those who either are on the path with the business or entrepreneurship or are thinking about it. I really encourage you to tune in and stay to the very end. At the end, Ashley talks about 2 exciting events coming up. One is a totally free workshop she has this Thursday, September 23rd at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And that one's called Unleash Your Impact, 5 Queen Skills to Become a Wildly Impactful Leader, Increase Your Income, and Constantly Fill Your Transformational Groups and Retreats. You'll also hear about Ashley's upcoming virtual program, Unleash Your Impact, which I have done its first iteration way back when, and Ashley has added so much to this program. It's really beautiful, and I'm such a huge proponent and believe in Ashley's program so much. I'm offering a super special bonus offer from me if you do choose to join, if it feels aligned for you. And so I give you all of that info at the end, so stay tuned to the end of this interview for that and how to access all of the bonuses and the workshop. It's going to be so much fun. It's all happening this week, and I hope you'll join us. So with all of that, let us dive into this interview with Ashley Burnett. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Feed Your Wild. I am very excited to have back on my friend Ashley Burnett. And if you have been listening to the podcast for a while, Ashley has been on, you've been on 3 times. So this will be the 3rd time, which is pretty awesome. And last time was a super juicy conversation. I'm going to make sure that I link up everything, all of our conversations in the show notes for everybody. And, we'll be making references. But for those of you who are new or who haven't heard of Ashley, Ashley is a women's leadership coach, dancer, women's circle and retreat facilitator, and earth-based ritualist. Ashley is committed to helping change-making entrepreneurs and leaders align their core values with their vision, become more impactful leaders, and embody their missions in life with confidence. Ashley has been teaching, leading groups, and running her business for 18 years, and she's facilitated hundreds of classes, workshops, events, retreats, led thousands around the globe in expanding their business and igniting their leadership. And she currently lives in San Francisco Bay Area with her hubby, David, and sweet babe, Quentin, who's adorable, and has the honor of running her retreats at her workshop space on 22 acres of expansive land. So for those of you who aren't in the know or familiar, Ashley was my mentor when it came to really expanding into retreat and group work. So I talk about that experience in the last episodes, but I just always get so excited to connect back in with my friends and my mentors, and you guys are such a wealth of knowledge. So Ashley, with all of that said, thank you for coming back on.
Thank you so much for having me, Vanessa. And hey, everybody, excited to be here with you today.
Yeah. So I thought we could do a little catch up. It's been a year since we last spoke, and I feel like these past couple of years are not normal years, obviously. They're like quantum Twilight Zone years. And so I know that this experience, even just of a year, has been so vastly different for everybody. And I'm curious how this past year has treated you and anything that you would like to reflect on.
I mean, I think one of the biggest things that has been coming to me with COVID and just how our world has changed is that this time is requiring us to get creative.
Yeah.
Right? To create our own reality, to think outside of the box. And I've always kind of gone down the path less traveled, so to speak. But I think that there is kind of, that's what's being asked of a lot of people right now, is to, how can I get creative? How can I think outside of the box? How can I make the reality that I would like to see come forth, to become manifest, right? And so, and I think also this time it's even more crystal clear that our world needs the compassionate, heart-centered change makers to really step forward, to answer the call that they are hearing within them to make a positive impact on this planet, and also to make more money so that we can give back in greater ways to the initiatives that are going to help restore a sense of ease and balance to this planet. And so we're being called, and Mama Earth is asking us to answer that call, right? Even if we're scared, even if we're scared to speak our truth or scared to put ourselves out there in that way, we're being asked to do it, feel the fear and do it anyway. So those are two of the pieces that have really become clear to me through COVID. And, for myself, it's just been about continuing to cycle up with the seasons of nature for more sustainable leadership and, entrepreneurship, and making sure that I'm not burning myself out so that I can be that vessel that is a change agent, and I think that's what I'm just really getting for myself, and what I think other folks are starting to, step forward with and answer the call with right now. So those are kind of the big pieces for me.
They're really huge. I'm seeing this also with a lot of my clients, both in my longer term programs, but even just in the Akashic intuitive readings. There are so many people that are really doing a big reassessment of their lives, right, of their work, of their purpose. And I think that this has been a huge shakeup for so many people in like a million different ways. But I definitely see how, this time is really forcing us to prioritize and to get real, I think, with like what our life has been so far and what would we like our lives to be like, and how do we want to show up for the world, for ourselves, for our community, for our family. And so one of the things that I'm seeing, and I love that you touch on the creativity piece, especially with a lot of the mamas that I talk about, there's a lot of fear and like crunchiness that comes with thinking about moving forward in maybe a new direction, or, like, let's say starting a new business or continuing the path, but in a different way. And obviously, now we're seeing a lot of people might be losing their jobs as well. I mean, that's been something that has been happening since the beginning of the pandemic. But I think there's going to be a really big shift in people's resources and how and where they're showing up. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that piece around the fear that comes up in all the ways, like the unknown, fear of, I'm not good enough, or what do I know? And like all those things that might hamper the creative process for people.
Yeah. I mean, for one thing, the fear is completely valid, right? So I think the number one thing is to totally honor and acknowledge the fear is there and that it is valid to be there, right? I mean, because the positive intention for fear is to keep us safe, right? I actually, if you're cool with it, I can kind of share a process that helps to move through that fear. And this is kind of like a maybe 5 to 6 step process just to, kind of move through the resistance and fear that we might feel around taking inspired action or making that change or stepping forward for what we believe in or starting a new business endeavor, passion project endeavor, right? Any of those things, making a move, all of it. And so the first step is to really do that, bring it to the surface, air it out, acknowledge it, right? Just simply you stating that you have the fear, it gives it less power. It gives it less, power to take over, and it begins to kind of dissipate slightly just through bringing it to the surface and airing it out, right? Step 2, it's really about honoring the positive intention in it. I just mentioned that, right? What is the positive intention for that fear? Well, it's trying to protect us, keep us safe, trying to keep us maybe happy or stress-free, right? Because it takes some work to start a new business endeavor, right? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not, a cakewalk here, but, in my reality, and I know for you too, Vanessa, it's been so worth it to create my own reality when it comes to my work life, right? It's amazing. So it's worth the hard work. But that positive intention for the fear in and of itself is something that we can see, oh, okay, that's why I'm experiencing this fear. The step 3 is to ask yourself, well, this is what's happening because of this fear. It might be inaction, right? And this is what will continue to happen if nothing is done, right? So just kind of naming that. If I don't make any moves, here's what's going to happen or going to continue to happen, right? And then step 4 is to ask yourself, well, what would you like instead? Instead of that fear, what would you actually like to experience? And whatever you're creating doesn't need to be perfect, right? Perfection doesn't exist, right? So it's like understanding that this is a long-term marathon. It's not a sprint to the finish line, and it's a process, but it's just simply like, instead of the fear, what would we like to be experiencing? And asking ourselves that. And then step 5 is like, okay, all right, fear. Here's where we're going. Here's where we're heading. And here's the truth. you don't get to be in the driver's seat anymore. You don't even get to be in the passenger seat. You get to be in the back seat, and you can't be a backseat driver. You just get to go along. You just get to go along for the ride at this point, right? And so you're kind of maybe even writing a letter to the fear and saying like, hey, this is where we're going. Like, I appreciate you for trying to keep me safe and your positive intention that you've had for me, but I'm ready to move forward. And this is where we're going now. Right. And then step 6 is to uncover the deeper why behind that. And this is why, right? This is why I'm starting the business now. And to really root into your why. And the other thing, one of my mantras that I've kind of coined is let your mission move you. When you're clear on your why and your mission, that is the, catalyst. That's the anchor to help you kind of move your mission forward, fear and all, right? And cultivate that courage and bravery that it takes to move forward, even in the midst of fear. So that's kind of my little 6-step process to moving through, that fear and resistance to taking that inspired action. And hopefully it can help. But that's something I like to play with a lot when it comes to fear. Fear is always going to be there. We just got to dance with it.
Yeah, I love that because, as you're saying, dancing with it, it's like not trying to suppress it, push it away. It's there, it's real, it's big right now. And so what is fear telling you? And I think that there's so much that can come through that process. I mean, that's really a process of self-discovery too, because you may not have ever asked yourself some of these questions. And so I think, well, that's a gem. Thank you for sharing that with us. I also am hearing, like, as people are energetically tuning in, I can just hear some being like, well, the but, right? Where there's always some, for lack of a better term, I'll say excuses, because, it's not that they're not valid or not real. Like, we all have obstacles and challenges. And so I don't want to diminish that. But when people are saying, for example, well, I have kids at home because now they're at home, or I'm homeschooling, or I'm taking care of someone who's sick, or, I have a full household. I'm curious how you have navigated this experience, because you work from home, you work remotely mostly, correct? Right? And you have a little one. And so I'm just curious if you could share a little bit of how you navigate that. And also just to kind of speak into that process around, when the buts come up, how can we face those too?
Right. I mean, the buts, I feel like, are always going, again, like similar to the fear, the doubts, right? Because the buts are the doubts, I feel like, right? Yeah, and so honestly, for doubt, I take myself through a similar process and just kind of shift the fear to the doubt. You could insert the buts into that process and take yourself through that 6-step process as well. It's about acknowledging the deeper underlying limiting belief underneath the doubts, right? And I'm not going to, take everyone through a process around that, but, in the work that we do at Ashley Burnett and Co., we move through that. We have processes that we take our community through to help them uncover those limiting beliefs or those doubts or those buts, and then to, powerfully move through them. I'm trained in neurolinguistic programming work, and as is my core coach, Monica. And so we have these processes that help to kind of identify what those limiting beliefs are, and then help to rewire them and get you to a place where your mindset is just in a different spot, so that the buts and the doubts don't come up as frequently, and you have resources in place. So when they do, you can nip those in the bud, right? And so it takes work and it takes time. And as you know, it takes, again, it's not the sprint, it's the marathon to even, getting yourself into a different mindset. If we're talking about like money mindset and things like that, or even, like a abundance mindset or I can do it mindset, it takes time to rewire those limiting beliefs and create new habits and create new ways of really believing in ourselves. But it's worth it to do that work. And you got to get yourself into a community in an area of being able to uncover and do that work. And it's so much easier in community too. So there's that piece. Anything else you want to add to that? And then I can also speak to, working at home and all those kind of things.
Well, I think you touched on such a huge aspect of like where it makes a lot of, it literally makes a lot of the buts irrelevant when you do that deep work, because then you have the resources. You can then, as you're saying, be literally in a different consciousness state where you're actually seeing the possibilities that you weren't able to see before. But it's so hard to do that when, you're kind of pigeonholed in a certain space because of those limiting beliefs. So it's awesome that you brought that up, and that it's good news that there are ways to break through those,
Totally.
for people. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know you have a little one, Quentin, and a lot of the clients that I've been having lately are mamas, and most of them actually mamas to little ones. A lot of them are at home, and really looking at, okay, well, how do I balance my business, whether they already have their own business or they're working a job or wanting to start something, and just really not having any concept of like, how am I going to even make this happen? I'm just curious if there's anything that you can share from your own experience that might be helpful.
Well, I mean, first off, I acknowledge that everyone's situation is different, right? Like some people have childcare, some people don't. Some people, their kids are at preschool. Some people, they're literally caring for their kiddo all day. And so, I mean, I think the thing I always want to say is you have to honor and again, acknowledge the set of circumstances that you are working with right now. I think that's a big thing. There's a lot of, like in any industry, right? But I think in the entrepreneurial and kind of, holistic and creative entrepreneurial industries, which is most of the clients that I work with, there's comparison, right? And I should be farther along, or I should do this, that, and the other. And it's like, well, what's your set of what's the card deck that you're currently dealing, or that you've been dealt, right? You got to start there. You can't compare yourself, you can't expect yourself to be somewhere when you're watching your kid full time, right? So there's that. And it's possible to get support. It's possible to get creative to get that support. It's possible to, if we can't get that support, create space in unconventional ways to even carve out, an hour or two a week to work on something that, we're passionate about. So one of the things that really comes to mind for me though, is about working seasonally. I support my clients a lot, whether they're starting out with a vision or they're, been working on their business for years, in aligning their businesses up and their lives up with the cycles and seasons of the natural world, right? And so making sure that we are, paying attention to the different seasons, what those seasons signify and the energy that's inherently happening in nature in those seasons, and then making sure that we're kind of launching our businesses and creating seasonal work schedules for ourselves based on that energy, right? And so, for example, I actually took 6 weeks off for summer because it's just such a checkout period. It's almost like the dichotomy between winter solstice and summer solstice. It's like we check in, we hibernate, we go inside in winter. And then I also take about 5 weeks off then. And then in summer, it's like the opposite. We're checking out, we're outside, we're playing, we're doing all these things, staying up late, but, we're also kind of checked out of our work, and so there's that like inherent built-in break that I had to work to get to, right? Like it certainly wasn't a 6-week break at the beginning of my process, right? But it's been, created now. And then in the fall, in springtime, spring is like blossoming with ideas, lots of creative energy. These are great times to start writing programs or, launching things. And similarly in fall, the creative energy is kind of at its last hurrah. You see all the colors of the leaves changing, and there's just this exciting energy of the harvest that's happening. And it's a great time to launch programs or start to, birth new projects for the coming year and things like that. And so, I like to not only cycle my launches up with the cycles and seasons of nature, but also my schedule and create a seasonal schedule, block schedule for myself based off of each season. And, it's going to be lighter in the summer and a little bit heavier in the spring and fall. That has helped me a lot. And, also just block scheduling in general. If okay, well, I'm a full-time stay-at-home mom who wants to create a business. Obviously, I've got times after my kid goes to bed or during naps, and I can't tell you how much work done I've gotten done during those naps,
Mm-hmm.
And it's frustrating when the nap doesn't happen, right? And then we have to kind of release our attachment to outcome as we approach this, in motherhood for sure. But there's still space, and we can get creative to find that space, and the more that we can anchor it down with kind of a seasonal schedule, the more that, effective we can be, the more that we have a foundation for ourselves, even when we feel like we might be all over the place with toddlers and babies and toddlers in our lives, So I don't know if that resonates, but that's one of my practices that I just love doing that's helped me so much.
Yeah, it's so helpful. One thing that, like, riffing off of that, and even just in my own journey, I share this a little bit in some previous episodes, but with pregnancy, like the first trimester was brutal. I'm not going to paint a rosy picture around that either. I mean, it was beautiful and transformative. And at the same time, there were moments where I was knocked out. Like I couldn't show up in the same way that I'm used to showing up. So it literally forced me to look at, well, the limited time that I have and the limited energy that I have, what are like the key players? What's the one thing, that like, if I prioritize this and I get this done, it takes the place of like 5 other little things that I probably would have kept myself busy doing, but I didn't really have to do. And so I think that, and I would imagine, not being, mom yet, and I don't have a lot of, like, in terms of needing to support others in my home at this time yet. So I don't have that experience, but I can only imagine that moms get really good at prioritizing, or like knowing what's the one thing that I really need to get done today and that matters.
Yeah, you definitely become more efficient in prioritization and just, I think, efficient with your time in general. When it's limited, you're like, okay, I got 2 hours. I'm going to bust this shit out right now. Excuse my French, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm going to bust it out. I've got this amount of time and I'm just going to go for it. Right. And so I think that's another piece. And then I think also, as we get deeper into the entrepreneurial path, delegate, ask for help. I think that's one of the big key pieces of Queen. I work a lot with this archetype of the uninhibited conscious queen, to kind of place that crown on our head while we're making these moves forward and creating our businesses and putting ourselves out there. And I think we have to just, work with what we have, but it's also just become efficient and delegate, get the help that you need. And you don't have to pay thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars to get that support. It can be in the form of trade. It can be in the form of simply, here's a great example. One of my clients who's a good friend is a leadership coach. And so it makes sense that she asked for this, but her husband's going to be gone this weekend. She's hosting a party for a friend of mine. And she asked me, hey, can you and Dave stay after for like 30 minutes and help me clean up? I know I'm going to need help because Panama's away. Right. And I'm like, perfect. Okay, let's do it. And so simple things that feel hard to ask sometimes.
Yeah.
Because we're not used to asking for help as women. That's what is needed to get, to be able to take the action and to get the things done. Right. And so wherever we can begin to delegate, I think that's where, especially when we're in, the phase of motherhood, that's going to make our whole experience so much more easeful. It's still going to be challenging, but we're going to be in flow and we can actually give ourselves permission to ask for help like that.
Yeah. Well, in speaking of queen, and, we can speak more into that archetype too, queen and showing up and voicing your needs. I know that that's something we've both been jamming on lately, is this concept of voice. And so what are some of the ways that you've been relating to voice in your work, or that you see with your clients, like this concept of voice and showing up?
Well, where I always start with my clients is around getting clear on your core beliefs and what you stand for, and so whether it's in a 6-week program like Unleash Your Impact, or it's in a 6-month program like the Uninhibited Mastermind, or I'm working privately with a client, we always start there. I don't care if they've done that work 10 times with me before, because your beliefs and your thought processes and what you stand for shift over time, or they get more refined over time. The more that you do that and ask yourself those questions, the more that it really becomes ingrained into deep in your bones, right? And so that's where I begin a lot of times with voice work, is to even get clear, like, well, what do I believe? Asking yourself these things. What do I believe? What do I stand for? If I weren't to censor myself in any way, what are the thoughts and ideas that I feel most strongly about that I'm being called to share with the world? Asking myself, what do I know deep within my bones with unwavering certainty? And also, like, what do you see that gets you riled up, that lights a fire under your ass to, speak up for and create that change, right? So, yeah, I feel like it's really about identifying what your core beliefs are and what you stand for. From that place, that's where you can speak your truth. That's where you can start to activate your voice. But if you don't know what you believe in, it's hard to take a stand. It's hard to speak your truth. It's hard to ask for what you want if you don't know what you want, right? So start there, right? Ask yourself some of those big questions. And then it's from that place that you can start to show up in a greater way for your community and speak those things to the world, and maybe start writing your talk, or, the things that you believe in that you want to get out there on social media even, right? But you have to start with that deeper inquiry first.
I think that's a really beautiful distinction of, like, getting to know what you actually believe first and what is your truth. Because essentially, even if you do have a voice and you speak, I feel like people, if you're not aligned or if you don't believe yourself, like, people really feel that, right? And so it's like getting so clear on that for yourself and building what I love. You talk about the Uninhibited Queen archetype and the confidence that comes with that. Can you speak a little bit more into that?
Well, yeah, I think, again, the more that we can identify what we believe in and the more that we do that process, the more that we believe ourselves and we do give that kind of confidence off to our communities, right? And so it's a process. It's not something, again, like any of this stuff that we've been talking about, it doesn't happen overnight. But this is about boosting your confidence, your self-assurance, uncovering what you stand for so that you can move through that fear and doubt and limiting beliefs and really embody what it is that you came to do here on this planet, embody your mission, fully own your self-worth while you are stepping forward and putting yourself out there. And so, yeah, the more that we can kind of do that deeper inquiry, play with these archetypes, have fun with it. It doesn't have to be this like super scary, super intimidating process. And the more that we can get support around it, the more that we can weave play into the process and, go deep, the more that we're going to begin to really feel like that queen and feel embodied and know that we can do this work. But it really helps to have guides and community and people that can support you along that process. Because when you're kind of left to your own devices and taking yourself through these processes yourself, that's when we start to the doubt really starts to creep into the process. And that's where a lot of people just do nothing, and what I call frozen entrepreneurial syndrome,
Totally.
right, where we're just like, okay, we're done. I can't do anything because I don't know what to do now. So yeah, I feel like it's all about community, giving yourself permission to receive that support and going deep into the process of uncovering your kind of uninhibited queen within that can help us to get out there and make that kind of impact that we're wanting to make, both for like our communities and our families and selves and personal lives, right?
Yeah. Well, I love that everything that you're touching on is basically laying the foundation for moving forward and becoming sort of like that queen and creatrix of your own life and of your own business, like whether it's personal or work related. It's like these are key foundational things. And I know that you're very passionate about creating community, having safe and strong containers for your community. I've heard from a lot of folks that are really wanting that, like they're thirsty for it. And the past 2 years have just been so crazy, right? Like us really being forced into the digital world with like Zoom meetings, Zoom parties and all of that. But also feeling like, well, gosh, looking at, did I really have a strong community to begin with? I see a lot of people even looking at, well, I had some friends, I went along through my day, like maybe at work, but like there still was maybe that missing piece that is ineffable of a really strong container and community. I wanted to go into that too, because I think in this time right now, it's so, so critical to build that where we are right now, even if it's like from your computer at home. What are some ways that you see we can really begin to do this? And I think importantly, if somebody wants to be the one to create that safe and strong container, like how to start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we thrive. We are creatures that thrive in community. And, I don't need to be the one to tell you that we've kind of isolated ourselves. And we're seeing now with this pandemic that it's an absolute must for us to have communities and circles and ways in which we can have space held for us and be on the flip side of that space holding as space holders, right? Like, I think there's a lot of us out there that want to hold space. We're feeling called to hold that space for other people. And we're doing that in so many different ways as moms and entrepreneurs and teachers and creatives and holistic practitioners and all of the things. And it's amazing to be able to hold that space. And we've got to have the tools to create safe, emotionally sound, close knit, super connected communities. And those are tools that are taught and learned, right? Not always inherent, but it also is really important for us to give ourselves permission to be on the opposite side of that coin, right? Mm-hmm. And have that space held for us. have the community that we can dive into, that we can be held in, that we can get ideas from, that we can brainstorm together with, that we can see ourselves in reflected in the other badass queen on the other side of the screen or circle from us, right? And the healing and the insight and the inspiration that comes from that, it's so huge. It's so huge. And then in terms of the person holding space, like I mentioned earlier, these are tools that are learned. You know, I've been holding space and teaching and leading groups for 20 years. I started when I was 21. I'm 41 now. I was 21 and I was given a TA-ship at my university, at the University of Illinois, to teach tap class as an undergrad. So I kind of had like a graduate role as an undergrad, had my own tap class with like, I don't know, it was like 30 or so students. And I was a pretty good tap teacher. And my mom was my dance teacher. So I had a great role model growing up. And I just didn't have these tools at that time. I remember the first day I got in and taught 5-year-old dance class the year after that. And I did not have the tools to create that connection but amongst the children and to have them feel safe to be who they were in the class. And the class went a little haywire, Mm-hmm. And then I remember the first time I was holding circles 10 years ago. And the first time I ever held a long-term program and I didn't have these tools. And it was not the most incredible program that it could have been, And now what I've learned, because I've gotten advanced trainings and have done this work now for so long, we know, and we're continuing to do our own work within Ashley Burnett and Co., myself and my team, to create even safer containers. But these are things that are taught, and you'll learn from experience too, but they're taught and learned, right? And so creating strong and safe communities, and as a space holder, as someone who sees yourself holding those groups for others, it's key, even if you've been doing it for years and years. And to allow yourself to be on that other coin, it's imperative for sustainable long-term leadership and entrepreneurship, in my opinion. So that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah. And I have to say that I think one of the best ways, because I feel like getting trained is so important and key, but I think one of the best ways also to almost like through osmosis is to participate in a community or a group or a retreat where this space holder is really doing it in a good way. And one thing that I can say, like 1,000%, is that Ashley knows how to hold a retreat and hold group space. And so that was my first foray when we first started working together. I think it started off with a retreat, actually. And right? It was like back in 2015 or 16 or something like that. And so it was in a retreat, and I was able to feel into energetically what it felt like to be held in a space, that in a container that was set up for my evolution in that short period of time. And for you to really hold energetically that space, and literally without you having to say anything, right? Like, you had certain things in place before we even got into like the workshopy components that already were helping to activate certain things. And I think this is what you're kind of touching in on. It's like those elements that so many people don't even know that they don't know. That it's not just about, oh, I know my shit and I'm going to teach it, but it's really about, okay, how do I become the person that is able to hold this kind of container in a way that elevates and helps the transformation of those who step in? And I think that is transformational work for both the person who is stepping into that role and for those who are coming into the container. And I just want to say, I think you do that really beautifully.
Thanks, B. I mean, I appreciate it. And it is about creating that container before the community even comes in, so that they feel held and supported and guided before they even step into the room or come onto the screen, right? There's all these things that can be done to help support that process. And then what happens, as for those of you that are space holders here, what has happened for me after I got those trainings, after I went deeper into this process and into this work and learned really how to create that strong and safe container and community, that the community wanted to continue and continue and continue. And the majority of people who work with me now are working with me for 2 to 4+ years. Right. And so then what's beautiful about that is that you really do have a community, and the folks that are in your community are so deeply connected. And for you as the practitioner, you don't have to continue to reinvent the wheel, that, you can continue to retain those clients in that community so that you don't have to constantly be marketing things all the time. Right. So that's been a huge thing. And it's just been amazing to witness my own transformation and growth around that piece over the last 6 to 8 years.
Yeah, I feel like doing that work, and it's definitely a commitment. It's a commitment to your own evolution and leveling up, because that's the only way that you can really, with good intention and alignment and being able to support others, you have to show up as your best. And so it's like a way to almost force yourself to do all of that.
It becomes ingrained. It becomes second nature when you're being asked to do that for yourself, right?
Yeah. And what I love about this too is that this applies to, of course, entrepreneurs, people who are guiding people in groups or retreats, but it also applies to people who are holding space for their own community or their family or little ones. I think these core principles are really applicable to so many places in our lives. We forget how important these components and the element of a safe container it really is.
Totally. Or if you're holding team meeting or something like that for your workplace, right? There's just so many different ways you can utilize these core leadership skills in that process.
Yeah. One thing that I did just want to mention, because I forgot who I got this from, and I want to give proper credit, but I remember someone saying, sometimes it may not feel safe, no matter how in reality safe it is, just because of one's personal orientation. But we can always cultivate brave spaces to show up, even if we feel fear, even if we don't necessarily feel safe, that we can at least feel comfortable to be brave and to show up. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, you have an amazing workshop coming up that is totally free, that is coming up this Thursday, and you're going to go into some of the elements that we actually touched in on today. Can you want to talk about that and give people a heads up so they can sign up and get all the juiciness?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the workshop it's a free workshop called Unleash Your Impact. And the little tagline of this workshop is 5 queen skills. We got to get that queen in there to increase your income, fill your groups and retreats, and become a wildly impactful leader. And what we're going to kind of dive into on this training is how to really move away, if you are a holistic practitioner, creative practitioner, move away from that dollars per hour and one-on-one business model for heightened income and impact, because it's great to work one-on-one with folks and there's a cap, right? I was a massage therapist for many years. That funded my dance career. I was a professional dancer. After I stopped teaching dance so much, I was dancing professionally, choreographing and things like that. And then was a massage therapist for 10 years to kind of fund that career, right? So there was only so much of an expansion I could experience personally through that, right? So I started to get creative about doing groups, even teaching group massage and things like that. So we talk a little bit about that. We also talk about how to avoid missing out on thousands of dollars of revenue per year as a holistic practitioner, using one of my favorite heart-centered strategies. And I'm not going to give it away on this call, but that is something that literally changed the course of my life when I started to adopt this and brought thousands and thousands and thousands of additional dollars of revenue into my pocketbook. And I have to say, in terms of the money piece, I just really feel, again, if we're looking at the reality that we need more conscious, heart-centered, I believe, women, identified change makers out there to create that positive ripple effect and that positive impact in the world. And in order to do that, we, even more effectively, we need more money in our pocketbooks, right? I think we're kind of done with the old paradigm of being broke as holistic practitioners and creative artists, right? And we need to have the money so that we can give back in greater ways, again, to the causes that we believe in. And it's just easier to create that change. Yes, we can create the change in other ways, of course, but it's easier to do it when we have more money in our pocketbooks. And if you can believe this, only 6% of women business owners make over $100,000 a year. And only 2% are making over $1 million. And that shit's got to change, right? So we need to embrace business models that can help us to scale as well as be sustainable long-term. I also talk in this workshop about why embracing a pleasure-based business model is vital to our success and sustainability. And so this is not about pushing, doing, trying so hard. And again, I talked about cycling with the seasons of nature. We talk about things like that to help create that more pleasure-based business model that can create the kind of flow that we're wanting to see. How to create that close-knit community that has your participants feeling safe, held, supported, and that they want to keep coming back and working with you for years and years and years. And also the key tip that every group, doesn't even matter if you're a group practitioner, one-on-one practitioner, or facilitator, that you need to learn, though, to avoid burning out. Really, really big piece that I look forward to talking to. All about energetic hygiene on that workshop. So yeah, that's a little bit about what we're going to go in with on the workshop. Anything else you want to add to that, Vanessa?
No, I think that it's so jam-packed. And I love that you talk about pleasure-based business model, because we're over the fucking grind. I mean,
I am over it. I'm definitely over it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a different way. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be challenges or hard work. I think that just comes with anything that you're really dedicated to. And
the hustle is going to happen, right?
Right.
It's going to be a part of the process, and we can set these things up to work for us rather than us working for them all the time, right? And I was able, right after Quint was born, I went back to work, very minimally at first, but then went to a basically 20-hour work week. And that's what I work. It's 20 hours. I have basically 4 days where I'm on, 3 days where I'm off. Sometimes it's 3 days where I'm on and 4 days when I'm off, depending on the launch and the season. And with 2 massive breaks in winter and summer, and at least a week in spring and fall. And I mean, it's huge to be able to set yourself up for success in that way. And also, how do you infuse pleasure into your everyday process as a business owner? So yeah, it's huge.
I love it. I love it. And I know I want to give people a total sneak peek that you do have a program coming up, and it's probably one of my favorites. I did a first iteration of it way back when.
Well, and the retreat you came to.
That's the retreat. That was the retreat.
It was Unleash Your Retreat and then Unleash Your Impact. So the workshop is called Unleash Your Impact, and the course is of the same name. And Vanessa, you were at the original iteration of it.
Oh, gee.
I know, it's so cool. So do you want me to just share a little bit more about Unleash?
Yeah, could you? Because I believe in it so much. I'm so excited about this. And I have a special bonus that I want to talk about. But yeah, I would love for you to speak into, if you have time. I don't want to honor your time. And I just want to
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty passionate about talking about this. So again, I mean, it's an online training program, 6 weeks. And again, this is not just your boring training program on Zoom where you're sitting there for hours upon hours, wanting to, we have a powerhouse community We have weekly dance parties as part of the program and different embodiment strategies that we weave in throughout the whole process, meditations, things like that, and rituals to help integrate all the teachings. But there are 6 core training modules, and this really is about creating that powerful positive ripple effect and increasing your income through leading experiential groups, retreats, circles, and programs. And so Unleash really helps you to craft that and get really clear on, well, what is that epic heart-centered offering that I want to create, to put out there? And we provide you with a framework on how to do that and just dream up the most aligned experiential offering to put out to your community. Now, and I'll also say, while we focus on groups, if you are not ready to expand through group work and you're someone who needs to start with the one-on-one, everything that we offer in Unleash is supportive of that as well. And then you can eventually scale that one-on-one, maybe longer term, multifaceted offering to then be a group offering in the future. So I just want to say that. So that's week 1. We kind of dive into, okay, how do we create this thing? In week 2, we talk about the strong and safe communities piece that we were riffing on earlier. And we give you those advanced space holding skills, tools to create that community. I think it's like an 11 or 12 step process. And again, has your community wanting to work with you for years and years to come and just be a part of the container that you're creating long term. And week 3, we talk about developing your unique signature curriculum. And I offer, again, a simple structure and framework on how to create your own curriculum that won't take hours upon hours for you to create. It was one of my most difficult pieces. I could come up with the vision of this offering and I could come up with all the experiential components of it, but then I would struggle on what I was actually going to teach. And so now you kind of have a framework so that you can create that process so much quicker. And it's your unique process. It's not, template based or any of that. Week 4, we have a whole module just on cultivating queen confidence and amplifying your voice and learning to work with that uninhibited queen archetype and activate what you stand for so that you can speak your truth while you're holding powerful and transformative space for your community. Week 5, is all about marketing. You got to learn how to market yourself and put yourself out there. How do you do that pleasurably? How do you do that joyfully? How do you do that from a place of authentic service rather than feeling salesy, right? So this is about serving your community. And if we don't offer the things to our community, we're doing them a disservice because we're not actually offering what can help them. Right? So we've got to learn how to confidently get out there and market our offerings. And then in week 6, we have a module all about energetic hygiene. I kind of mentioned that. We talk a little bit about that on the workshop. And this is about learning how to ground, manage, and clear your energetics before, during, and after your events to avoid burning out. Huge, huge, huge. We help you to dial in your own energy clearing routine to take yourself through every time you lead a class, retreat, event, group. So it's a really robust program. So those are live trainings with the whole crew. And then the crew gets broken into small groups of 3, 2 different times and gets to mastermind together and brainstorm together in small group, which is super cool. And then we have these really incredible masterclass mentors that come in that support us in some of these modules, which is just a really incredible bonus. I don't pretend to try to have all the answers for everything. So we've got some really badass guest mentors coming in to support us throughout the process. So it's a really well-rounded, holistic program. I would be honored to have you as part. And, if you're interested, just go ahead and sign up for the workshop and see what it's all about. And then if it resonates, we would be honored to have you in the course.
Yeah, it's so jam-packed. I'm so excited. Last year, I know I pimped it out too, but so many of the folks that stepped in to the container came back to me and were just like, yeah, this is the real deal. And, I think that there's so much that you were talking about community and having that container. there's so much to being surrounded by other people who are also in this container with you, this program, that maybe be on the same page as you, right? In terms of like where you're at in your own journey. And then there's others who are maybe a little further along. And it's so inspiring to have those kinds of touch points and motivation from people. Yeah.
You're out of your comfort zone. Exactly.
Totally. So I did want to mention quickly, because, you know, I love supporting this and I really believe in this, that I'm adding a bonus for anybody who is interested and feels the call and who wants to step into the container of Unleash Your Impact. I'm going to be offering my Feed Your Wild Voice program for free. So it's a 6-module program that's $444. And you would get it for free if you sign up for Ashley's program. And I'm going to have more information on that. But the first step 1, is to go to her online workshop this Thursday. And you can sign up for that. Go to wildlyrooted.com/unleash your impact. And of course, I'll have all the links in the show notes. And then you'll be set up. So Thursday, we'll get to hang. And you'll experience just kind of all the juiciness that Ashley gets to bring to y'all. I'm excited.
You know it. And we're going to have a dance party too, because that's how I roll.
That's how you roll, girl. That's how I roll. We love to dance. Well, this is awesome. Ashley, I cannot let you go, though, without first answering this question. I'm curious, every year it's different, but what is currently feeding your wild, whether that's body, mind, or soul?
I mean, it is the raw land that I live on out here. I mean, I live out on 22 acres in Sonoma County, and I was walking around with Quentin earlier today, and there were like 20 turkeys that were just going crazy together. Aww. And this land has just been really incredible. Just want to give voice to the fact that it was originally inhabited by the coastal Miwok peoples, and just honoring them and honoring all the plant and animal friends that inhabit this land with me and my family. And I'm just inspired all the time by this place, this wild place that I live on. And Vanessa, you've been here, so you know.
Yeah, beautiful. And you like the energy feeds you. And that's what I have found too, is just plugging in. And I think that's so important as entrepreneurs, as business folks. Like, you were touching in on this earlier, but ways to connect in with nature and the natural cycles and the energy, because it's so like regenerative and cyclic and beautiful. So yeah, I'm feeling that one.
Love it.
Well, Ashley, thank you so much for all of your amazing insights and teachings today. Is there anything else that you would like to leave us with, or where people can find you?
Just so grateful for you all tuning in. Yeah, you can always go to ashleyburnett.co to find out more about what I'm up to. Tune into the workshop, and I would just leave you with just whatever it is that you want, you can create. And this is a time that is calling us to just be creative and tune back into our creative roots. You know, we start, if you watch these children, you see how creative that we inherently are. So it's about remembering that inherent creativity and then doing the work needed to believe in ourselves so that we can really create and manifest whatever it is that we're seeking and that we're wanting. So rock your creativity.
Rock your creativity. Yeah. I love it. Well, thank you, Ashley. I'm sending you so much love where you're at, and I'm excited to welcome all the folks who are joining your workshop. We will see you there.
Okay, lots of love, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Thanks.
Hey there, I made something for you. One of the biggest challenges that I hear from people is that they are feeling stuck when it comes to their health. You're a smart, capable, and creative change maker, right? And you know what you should be doing for your health. So what gives? Well, it's not about willpower. And I wanted to create something that would help you to unlearn the things that are keeping you stuck so that you can get out of your own way and master the mindset of health. That's why I created Wildly Unstuck, where you'll learn the top 5 things that I have found to sabotage your health goals and what to do about them. You'll learn what it really takes to become committed and unstoppable when it comes to your health goals and find the clarity you've been looking for so you know exactly what to do to get back into alignment. And I made it totally free. So if this is something that you want to dive into and create a vision and soul goals for your health and your life and bring your gifts to the world, because we know that we need it, then I invite you to join us in Wildly Unstuck. You can find that at wildlyrooted.com/unstuck. I'll see you on the other side.